Hello, good evening, good day, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you're watching this from. This is Captain Mike, and as we have been doing for the last couple weeks... Oh, shit. Let me change that real quick. We're off to a great start. Forgot to do the intro screen, and I forgot to change the stream title. Anyway, so as we've been doing for the last couple weeks, we are doing a cross-country flight in a 1916 Curtiss JN4 Jenny. I am doing a route based on the route of the first U.S. cross-country flight, which took place in 1911 it was done by a pilot by the name of Rodgers. Today's stream will be taking us from Springfield, Illinois to Mexico, Missouri, which is somewhere around about here. We'll get more when we go. So jump on in here. So the historic flight that we are replicating took place on October 10th, 1911. October 10th being one of the days that Rodgers made the most progress out of any whilst doing the cross-country flight. He made over 260 miles, which is indicative of the pace he would have had to maintain had he actually wanted to get the Hearst Prize of crossing the U.S. in 30 days. Wasn't just retrospectively wasn't realistic for a where aircraft were in 1911. But anywho, okay, keyboard's actually working today. That's a good sign. All right, let's get the plane fired up here. A lot less to deal with than in a modern airplane. One must have to acknowledge that. Throttle. Okay, and ignition. So yes, I am going to be doing one leg today. It's a long one though. I've got it calculated at about 140 miles, give or take. Get my charts up here. Okay, so I'm looking for runway 13, and by the looks of this, I don't have a clue what runway I'm at. Let's see. This ramp, maybe. Alright. Let's just go here and see what the sign says. Alright. Anyway, I have been doing this solely using visual reference, being landscape and maps, landscape and static maps, as well as the compass. So that is part of the challenge, and sometimes airport taxiways are even more of a challenge than actually navigating in the air. Case in point. Alright, 70 degrees. I'm thinking... Right by the Foxtrot. I'm here, maybe? Is that where we are? Anyway, another thing I've learned the hard way is that I do have to make sure that my compass is actually pointing the right direction. Or, like, one of my pre-flight checks has to be making sure the compass was in the right direction. If 225 is the correct vector, I think that's putting me here at Foxtrot ramp. Let's test this out. Let's see. Can I read that? 22.6. So that's this runway, which makes sense. As usual, I have a glass of, or a package of purple drink ready to punish myself should I need to turn the GPS on. Can I try to avoid that? Oh. Can I read? Shit, is that 31? No, it's 18. Okay, so if we end the runway... What? Am I in the right place? 18. Alright, you know what? This doesn't count, but... What? There's no runway 18. Hell. This does not match the chart at all. Okay. That's the runway I need, though. Maybe that is 13 and I can't, I'm just blind. Doesn't look right, though. Alright, whatever. Anyway, we're off to a spiffing start here today. Whole last runway that's not on the airport chart, it's not on the map. Runway 22-4. That makes sense. Foxtrot. That makes sense. Yeah, Bravo's where I want to be. Bravo at 225. What? Hold on. What? Oh, these aren't labeled correctly either. Oh my god. Okay. Should I ever actually get off the ground? This is going to be real exciting. Okay. So I need to go right here. Alright, I am not counting I am not counting taxiways as part of the navigation challenge, because that's just these aren't even labeled correctly anyway. See, this says Alpha, but it should be according to the chart it should be Bravo. What I just came off of should have been Alpha. Probably should have checked the cross traffic before I did this. And then this runway isn't on the map at all, which is spectacular. Great job, Springfield, Microslop, whoever is to blame for this. Asobo, I don't know. Alright, here we are. Runway 13, and I don't... there's like an extra half a mile of taxiway I can use, but I don't actually need that much runway, so I'm already very tired of this airport, so let's just get onto the tarmac. Okay. Okay, bearing's correct. Runway's correct. Chart up. Alright. There we go. Okay, punch it.
Golf.
We're getting
2300 Zulu.
No,
Wind
thank
187.
Alright, first goal for this flight is to visit Springfield. Rodgers spent the night of October 9th there. Alright, so right about there. Okay, so we got the plane cruising. Probably doing a little bit more altitude. Alright, we missed the high tension wires. That's good. So I'm gonna try to remember where the state capital is, and I don't know if I'm gonna succeed or not. Oh yeah, this is where Abraham Lincoln's buried. Somewhere around about here. I don't know the exact spot. Or I recognize this cemetery. Maybe here.
Beechcraft 09er uniform. Hold position. Caution other traffic.
Alright, now let's see if I can
Beechcraft 09er
find
uniform.
the
Continue taxi.
old state house.
Roger. Beechcraft 09er uniform.
So that's the president. That is the present capital of Illinois, which I don't think was contemporary to when the first cross-country flight happened. There it is. There's the old Illinois state capital. Yeah, I probably should have looked up which one of these was the contemporary one in 1911, but I didn't. Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum and Library, not contemporary to 1911, I'm going to assume, based on the architecture. Alright, there we go. There's the old Illinois State House. And the new one. Having achieved this, do a little wing wave. Okay, try not to crash the plane. Alright, so next goal is to get moving again. We're going to be following the original route of the Chicago and Alton Railroad towards, which is going to be going generally towards Kansas City. We're not making Kansas City today. The team, the VinFizz team that did the first cross-country flight was presented with a choice between going from, or once leaving Springfield, they were presented with a choice of going to Kansas City or St. Louis. I think Kansas City was always like a goal, but whether or not to go to St. Louis, and my understanding is that they tried to get St. Louis to pay for an appearance by the first airplane crossing the country, and St. Louis refused, so they decided to go directly to Kansas City instead. So yeah, so they followed the Chicago and Alton Railroad out of Springfield, and this section of the Chicago and Alton Railroad between Springfield and Jacksonville no longer extant, so I'm going to have to try to dead reckon this, which has been a bit of a doozy in the past. But trying to navigate the vintage way is a large part of the fun here, so we're doing it. And we'll see how it goes. That looks kind of like it was a rail grade at some point. But I know that this road is maybe or maybe not anachronistic, but it is following the heading of it more or less that I need to follow. I do see it on the map here. So I think this road's going to be my reference for now. Anyway, if Yins don't give me anything else to talk about in chat, then you're going to be hearing a lot of me describing or talking through my navigation thought process, and the wind seems to be pushing me to the south. Oh, hey. Hey, Vias. How are you doing? I mean, that might be corn. Hard to tell from this... Hard to tell from the sky. I guess we're also, following with the whole historic thing, I'm now in October, so we're kind of past the harvesting season. Oh yeah, I saw that on Discord. Yeah, I hope you well, I hope you get something. I don't know if that's that might or might not be the best option, but I hope you get something. Awesome. Okay. Vice, if you missed the beginning of the stream, you missed me getting very lost in the airport, which is probably fun, which hopefully is funny if you're not me. Yeah, and today's today we're going to Mexico, Mexico, Missouri. Not the cool Mexico, but okay. I mean, what I've learned is that if there's any place you can think of that there's a place named after it somewhere in the Midwest, aspirationally, presumably. And this one's going to be a very flat and very long flight, but we will be crossing the Mississippi River, so there's a highlight there. Of sorts. Okay, so assuming I've been keeping along this vector, this is probably Pleasant Plains, and that next one there is Ashland. I'm hoping. I'm going to gamble on that at least. The only sort of definitive thing I've got is like there's apparently a high tension wire, which I don't see here. Not always the easiest thing to spot. All right, so I'm going to take it on faith that this is that this is where I am now, and now we need to start heading southwest. Alright, and this would be Prentice, Illinois, and it looks like the CNA rail grade is still here to some extent, and I can also just make out the high tension wires painted on the surface too. It looks like they just painted, like they're just painted on here from the satellite image and not actually 3D modeled, for better or worse. Can't have everything. Okay, this is Jacksonville, Illinois. According to my notes, somewhere around here we should be meeting up with the currently extant Canadian Pacific Railroad. Sure, which will make my life a little bit easier. Although this hasn't been that bad so far, navigationally. There's actually quite a few train lines running through here. This might be a problem. Let's just go... Let's go south and try to figure it out. Yeah, let's go south and try to figure it out somewhere a bit less cluttered. Directly south is... Oh no. Oh, you know what? That's part of the problem. That one's entirely on me. I went right and I was supposed to go left. That one's entirely on me. Okay, well... Good thing I have a very trustworthy compass on this plane. Good thing I know right from left. That'd be very awkward if I didn't. Made that publicly clear. Alright, this is the way I want it to be going. This rolls along this. I'm gonna assume this is a racetrack. I want to say for horses, but it is a very weird shape for horse racing. So maybe it's for cars. Feels like you see a lot of dirt ovals in the Midwest, and I don't know how many horse tracks they can really sustain. But what do I know? So we got this reservoir on the map. Love a good earthen dam. Love a good plane that seems to be listing a little bit to the left, whether I want it to or not. But now we're listing to the right. Okay, so here we have Murrayville. And then the next town is Manchester, or Manchester with an O, possibly. I'm not sure if I'm wrong or if I'm not, or if the chart's wrong. Let's find out. Just Google things while I'm flying. That's very period correct and safe. Okay, Google Maps says Manchester with an E. So, yeah, I don't know. The FAA fucked up. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's a story here. Fuel doing pretty good. Here we are meeting up with US Route 67. No comment. Imagine what it must be like to be a kid in Manchester, Illinois, right next to Route Funny Number. Or, sorry. Or, no, yeah. That was Manchester. Bombing quite a bit. Alright, so coming up, this is Rude House, Illinois, which is a bit of a railroad crossroad, or it's a bit of a crossroads back in the day. I guess maybe still is, but, you know, nobody, it's all freight now, so... That said, I do have to pay attention, because I need to go to the right here. I think I see, yeah, so I want to follow this track instead of this track. Look, there's a Michael in Illinois. That's, I don't think I'll ever go there, but... Boy, here I was thinking about how lovely it is to be able to easily follow these rail grades through the Midwest, and now look at this. Look at this. I think I see where it goes, but yeah, you know what? No, I see where it goes. That there, outside of this, whatever this is. Random super heavily forested area. Although the algorithms that they used for generating terrain in this Flight Simulator aren't very good at differentiating between, like, they got empty land and they got dense forest, and there isn't really like a not dense foliage. Or it's not good at it. Anyway, here comes the Illinois River. We can just about start to make out the Mississippi. Ah, hi, Feathers. If you just got here, I am flying from Springfield, Illinois to Mexico, Missouri. And we are just about to reach the Illinois River. We are somewhere north of St. Louis. I'm not sure how to... You know what? I can judge this distance. Give me a second. Put the thing down. Doesn't want to put the thing down. $60 miles? I don't know. It's being a pain in the ass. And this is the Illinois River. I guess we're starting to approach the Ozarks, because I'm noticing it's getting a lot less flat. We're not really going to be going through the part of that, though. General direction we're going is Kansas City, but we're not making that there tonight. What I've seen of the Ozarks is that they make the Appalachians look big, and that's not an easy feat, so... Well, I'm easy feat. I guess most of the Earth's surface is relatively flat, and that makes the Ozarks look, or that makes the Appalachians look big. Fuel? Yeah. I've read somewhere that the Earth's surface is flatter than the tolerance, than like the spherical tolerance of a billiard ball. Which is wild to think about, but yeah, the Earth is really big and the mountains just aren't in comparison. Ooh, nah, it was pretty cloud. My memory is that it was overcast for most of the day. I mean, I looked up the pictures. Looked up the pictures from Iceland and the where have you. No, I don't know. The sun just wasn't out enough, and having experienced two total solar eclipses in the flesh, partial's just not going to do anything for me. Alright, so here we have Nebo, Illinois. So this is one of the places that on the real flight Rodgers stopped for fuel and, generally speaking, to do publicity for the cross-country flight. So around the time they left Chicago, the VinFizz Enterprise had decided that the Hearst Prize wasn't going to happen, and instead they were going to try to kick up funds by charging towns for demonstrations along the way. I think Nebo was one of the places that took the money. Kansas City definitely paid out to be a stop along the way. When they were in Springfield, Louisiana, Missouri, not confusing, right, which was sort of their designated crossing point for the Mississippi River, said they were going to pay out. When the caravan stopped in Nebo, they got a telegram saying that Louisiana had failed to gather their funds for the planned stop, and so there wasn't going to be any prize money there. Rodgers was unusually incensed by this. Unusually incensed, but like for the most part, he was a very for the most part, he was a very stoic and dry presence, but he decided that when he flew over Louisiana, Missouri, he was going to go as high as possible so they couldn't even see his plane. And so in tribute to that, we're going to gain some altitude here as we approach the Mississippi. And indeed, in the pre-World War I era, this might have been the only time a plane flew over Louisiana for the better part of a decade. Also, I'm interested in testing how high this plane goes, because when we get to New Mexico, I've got to go a lot higher than I've been going, so the altitude above sea level is going to be higher than I've been so far, and I need to make sure the plane's actually capable of this. Alright, that's 4,000 feet. Ground 4,000 feet above sea level. I should specify ground is somewhere around 700 above sea level. We also passed Pleasant Hill, which is unfortunately not getting a free show. It is getting hard to differentiate the railroad from the road at this height. $4,500. Funny to think that that's like at 4,500 feet's just a nothing burger for anything made after World War I, but Alright, and here comes the Mississippi River crossing. Don't know if I have any of my international followers in the audience today, but if you're American, I certainly don't need to explain to you the Mississippi. Or explain the importance of the Mississippi. Well, one, it's just a major waterway. It's just like a major water transportation way. On a more on a more metaphysical level, this is the boundary between the East and the West. I mean, this was at one point the western border of the U.S. That's probably why this was called Louisiana, after Louisiana Purchase. But, yeah, so this was once the West, and to this day, this actually sort of remains the population, like, if not the geographical halfway point of the U.S., more or less the population halfway point of the U.S. The population center of the U.S. is pretty close to the Mississippi River. Like, the population of the U.S. west of the Mississippi and east of the Mississippi is roughly the same. That too, yeah. The great American author Mark Twain was from Hannibal, Missouri, which is just up that way, off the Mississippi River. And every American kid had to read one of the something Twain wrote at some point in school. For an awful lot of us, it was Huckleberry Finn, but it could have been something else too. Anyway, to this day, it's a vital shipping lane, and just generally a important part of Americana. Anyway, having put Louisiana in my more or less in my non-existent rearview mirrors, I'm gonna go ahead and stop doing altitude. Trim down. Not that much. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have to read it, like even if you didn't have to read Huckleberry Finn specifically in high school, I'm surprised you never, like, not any of the poem, or not any of the short stories or anything at, like, any point. Or if you did, maybe you just forgot. But I'd be surprised if you didn't have to read, like, even one of the short stories at some point. Yeah, not having read one of his larger works I can buy. Like I said, I'm more inclined to believe that you forgot than you never had to read anything he wrote. Unless your school curriculum was just, like, not any of, quote, the classics, unquote. I remember There Will Come Soft Brains. Feathers, I can't remember if we were in the same English class or not, ever. I'm going to say AP Lit, which I distinctly remember as the best English class I took. I remember reading Invisible Man, and The Odyssey, and King Lear. I wrote my exam essay on Heart of Darkness, which was not part of the curriculum. In fact, I think I read Heart of Darkness the night before the exam. That was why I used it. My final project, I remember, was on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Huh. I just found out that Faulkner was one of the people who adapted The Big Sleep. who was one of the credited writers on the movie adaptation of The Big Sleep. That's a hell of a lineage. Raymond Chandler's somebody I'm interested in reading. Like, I just haven't been reading a whole lot of fiction recently, but there's a special feature on one of the Connery Bond movie Blu-rays where Ian Fleming and Raymond Chandler have a discussion with each other about their works. Clearly a decent amount of mutual respect there. What am I at now? Just over 3,000 feet. It looks like this is mostly flat to where I'm landing, and that is at 800 feet. I don't know what... I assume that this is just a design to make it... I guess it's supposed to be easier to see from a distance than an American flag, but I don't know that for sure. I don't think Jenny's ever saw combat, so it shouldn't have needed combat livery. We passed Curryville. Puts us on the last 30, 20 mile. I can't actually tell. I don't have enough. I have enough information here, but we're on the final stretch. Yeah, we're back to this now. Oof. And I think it's going to be like this until we're at least halfway through Texas, unfortunately. Yeah, there's a lot of this coming up. Alright, let's see if we can measure the tool working now. Okay, and here we have Vandalia, Missouri, and that, based on my measurements, there's about 20 miles left. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I have almost half a tank of fuel left. This plane's got much better range than my documentation for it says it does. So that's certainly preferable to the opposite. Yeah, so on the subject of the U.S. being big and boring, so after Rodgers finished his cross-country flight, one of the other people who had started in September of 1911 had worse setbacks than Rodgers did, essentially, finally ended up completing his cross-country journey in early February of 1912. Mid-February 1912. He went Pacific to Atlantic. And yeah, it took him like 5 months. Most of that waiting for repairs. Or trying to scrounge up repairs. Anyway, after 1912, there are no known serious attempts to do a cross-country flight after that until after World War One. The next person to cross the U.S. by airplane after Cal Rodgers and Bob Fowler would be Lieutenant Belvin Maynard. That's a wonderfully dated name there. Belvin Maynard of the U.S. Army, who won the 1919 Transcontinental Air Race sponsored by the U.S. Army. And he show you how much everything had improved. Short of the 3 months it took, it ended up effectively taking Cal Rodgers to cross the U.S. Belvin Maynard crossed the U.S. and did the return trip in a cumulative week. Yeah, even without the setbacks, it would just absolutely have been impossible to do in the planes to do with what was available in 1911. My estimate is that no setbacks, or is that like at a sort of idealized but realistic pace with no at an idealized but realistic pace with no weather delays, or no weather or maintenance delays. It would have taken Rodgers 3 weeks minimum to cross the U.S. Like, the machine just doesn't have more than 200 miles a day, or the machines of 1911 didn't have much more than 200 miles a day in them, if that. To be honest, and given how ragged the plane was by the end of the trip, probably 200 is probably asking too much. So that was Vandalia. This is Farber. This Ladona. Or Ladonia. Yeah, and I mean, I don't even know if I would specifically... The other thing is, I don't even know if I would specifically credit World War I with spurring all of that technological advancement, or just, like, the fact that the plane was a new technology then, and things were getting perfected as they went. Well, okay, so partially technology of the airplanes themselves, and partially the engines, or internal combustion engines, just got a lot better in that decade as well. Interesting footnote to this discussion. The first jet engine, what we would now refer to as a turbojet engine, was designed on the eve of the theory and everything happened in the 30s, and the first plane to be mated to a jet engine was built right before World War I or World War II, I should say, started. And because of World War II, it never ended up... didn't end up being flown, and... I don't know what the first jet-engined aircraft to actually fly was, but the Germans usually get credit for making the first... The Germans made the first combat-capable jet aircraft. It was the Messerschmitt Me-262. And the U.S. was just beginning to build usable jet fighters at the end of World War II. And then a decade later, we have our first jetliner civilian aircraft. But yeah, it's interesting that World War II both set back and spurred jet engine technology. That might be my runway there. Load up, thank you. Okay, it's just a single runway. Thank goodness. I'm tired of getting lost at these places. Oh, there are 2 runways. Never mind. Still, should be hard to get lost at. Alright, so this would be Rush Hill, and assuming that is my runway, I'm gonna start making approach maneuvers here. About 1,000 feet AGL right now. And just back a little bit. fuel do I have left? A lot. Yeah, this is supposed to be like on the upper reaches of what this plane's capable of, and it's... yeah. Oh well. It is silly if they put the... That is silly design. If I do say so myself. Descent paths. Why do I have such a bad eye for descent? Wide slopes. Anyway. Bit of a crosswind. Alright, we're down. So Charlie had just passed. Another happy landing. This plane does glide so slowly that it really... it's a lot easier than it could be to land. I've definitely had more trouble with planes that are faster than this. And as usual, I've got the taxi, smart taxi lights on. I'm not going to apologize, and if you were here for the beginning of the stream, you know why I'm not going to apologize for the smart taxi lights. Don't stop. Don't stop. Do not stop. Power management. This is a runway, but I mean, hopefully no one's using it. I don't really care. Air traffic's just gonna do what it's gonna do. If you insist. That guy... Okay. He's fine. He had plenty of time to get out of the way. It's like the steamroller guy from Austin Powers. And that's a broken wing. Welcome to Mexico. Mexico, Missouri, that is. You can tell this isn't the real Mexico because there's not an overbearing yellow filter. But yeah, so that's where we're gonna end tonight. Thank you very much for watching. So I have a work thing next Thursday evening, so I will not be streaming then. I might do Monday, Tuesday next week. Need to confirm some things before then. If I do Monday, Tuesday, it will be on the schedule on Twitch. I'll make sure it's on the Twitch schedule before Monday. But yeah, so if not, I will definitely be back Tuesday at 7 Eastern, as usual. But until next time, going to say fly safe and keep your eyes on the sky.